Hi, you've reached Burger King. To leave a message, press 1.
Hey, Burger King, you want to drive biz? I got this idea. I'm a big fan of the way you cook your burgers, but what about chicken? So why not do a flame-grilled burger chicken?
Burger chicken? How about we call it the new Flame Grilled Chicken Burger from Burger King? A savory Flame Grilled Chicken patty topped with veggies on a toasted bun. Now just 2 for $5. Or mix and match with another delicious sandwich, part of the 2 for $5 deal. The new Flame Grilled Chicken Burger. Only at Burger King. Limited time only. Price and participation vary.
Blog Talk Radio.
We are the Tennis Network. Our mission is to be the voice of tennis. We enlist a team of passionate enthusiasts to promote our sport. We strive to bring interesting perspectives on the many spins of tennis. Our goal is to provide the learners of our sport with current news and information from many angles. We seek active participation from communities interested in tennis, but tennis is not interested in them. We are expanding our outreach. Tennis is a true lifetime sport that needs to be talked about, and the Tennis Network pledges to pursue this idea relentlessly.
Good morning and welcome to the Parenting Aces radio show on Blog Talk Radio's Tennis Network. I'm your host, Lisa Stone, and today we are going to be talking high school tennis. Where I am, my part of the country, this is high school tennis season. Tryouts are going on at the schools around the Atlanta area right now, and practices will be starting in the next few weeks, and then matches will be starting a couple weeks after that. So I felt like this was a great time to have today's guests on the show. Today we have with us Bill Patton and Styrling Strother, and let me just give you a little bit of background. So with Styrling has been coaching professionally for 2 decades. He's trained hundreds of players, and he has a very unique and passionate style of coaching, which I'm hoping he's going to tell us about today. He's the founder and director of Styrling Strother Tennis, which is a player development program for juniors and adults. He's also the president and director of coaching at USATennisCoach, which is promoting excellence through developing creative training environments for coaches worldwide. He coaches the Cary Academy Chargers in Cary, North Carolina, and that team has been inside the top 3 high school tennis programs in North Carolina since Styrling took over as head coach. His philosophy of coaching is discover through play. So he really is looking for players that can come and be in an expansive, spacious environment so that they can thrive. So that's a little bit about Styrling. Now let me tell you about today's other guest, Bill Patton. Bill has been on the show before, so those of you who have been with me a while, you will recognize his name. Bill is the executive director of USATennisCoach, and as I said, they provide training, certification, mentorship, collaboration, etc., with high school coaches around the U.S. He has been in the industry for 27 years. He's written 11 books, one with yours truly, on Amazon, and he is a high school tennis coach himself and also a distributor of Bones original tennis wear in the U.S. He, as a coach, is sponsored by Technifiber Rackets and String. And Bill actually hosts his own radio show at 720 Degree Coaching. And so you can look him up and listen to his show too. And I've been a guest on his show. He and I tend to go back and forth, inviting each other on when we have something timely and important to discuss. So I'm really thrilled to have both those guys with us today. Before I bring them on the air, I want a commercial, but when we come back, I am pleased to have with us Bill Patton and Styrling Strother.
Warning. Orthopedic surgeons are seeing an increase in overuse injuries when young athletes perform the same repetitive stressful motions over and over. Pitching, tennis, weight training, even long swimming workouts can cause overuse trauma that may require surgery. If your kids play and train hard, visit orthoinfo.org or stopsportsinjuries.org. A message from the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons and the American Orthopedic Society for Sports Medicine.
Welcome back to the Parenting Aces radio show on Blog Talk Radio's URTennis Network. I'm your host, Lisa Stone, and we've got two awesome guys with us today, Bill Patton, Styrling Strother. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you so much for being with us. Oop, I'm having trouble getting Styrling on. Oh, there you are. Hey, Styrling. Hey, Bill. Thanks for being with us today.
Good morning, Lisa.
Good morning, Lisa and listeners.
And y'all are coming literally coast to coast. Bill is situated in Northern California. Styrling's situated in North Carolina. I'm a little closer to Styrling, I would say, here in Atlanta.
Just a little
Styrling, are y'all having these frigid temperatures like we are? Oh my God.
Well, it's not even going to get out of the 20s today, Lisa.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal out there. Gorgeous, sunny and blue skies, but brutally cold. Yep. Bill, y'all have been having rain up in your part of the country.
El Nino Tuesday is here.
Yeah. So I mentioned in my intro, I gave a little bit of background on both of you, and the two of you are working together now to really promote this idea of excellence in high school coaching. And given that you're on opposite ends of the country, I'm wondering if y'all can share with us how you came to work together, how you met each other and came together.
All right, Bill, you want me to go on this one?
Of course.
Yes, I love this story.
I'll fill in the factual information after you're done.
Yeah, yes, exactly. So it's East Coast meets West Coast. About 3 years ago, I took a trip to San Jose, California, to spend a week with one of my mentors and great coaches, Ken DeHart. And I stayed with a fellow named David Crane, who is one of the pros with Ken. And David took me to this little backyard barbecue in NorCal. And we walked through the back gate, and they start introducing. There was a few people, and here's this guy sitting at this picnic table, umbrella. And I walk up, they introduce, and it's Bill Patton. I never heard this guy before. And so we start talking, and the first question that Bill asked me is, so Styrling, you've been probably coaching a while. What do you think about cheating in junior tennis? I was like, oh, my God, this is like my wheelhouse. And so we proceeded to solve cheating in junior tennis over the next maybe 45 minutes or so. It was fabulous. So that was and then later on we got to talking, and Bill looked at me and he was like, you know what? I feel an East Coast, West Coast connection here. So that's how we met. Bill?
No, no, you thought it was going to be the East Coast, West Coast connection. I was wondering what you were smoking because I wasn't feeling it. But it does turn out to have been prophetic, brother.
I love it.
So true.
Well, so how did y'all get from cheating in junior tennis to this whole idea of we got to do something about the quality of high school tennis coaching?
Yeah, let me get into that. You know, it's funny because Styrling and I, our friendship has developed mainly through Facebook since. But no, there was a really good synergy when we first met, and we could tell that we were very like-minded about a lot of things. And you know, when you get like-minded people together, then there's a lot of power there. So a couple of months ago, Styrling had shared with me his vision of USATennisCoach and certifying high school tennis coaches, and that's something that I had also thought of independently, but he'd already kind of fleshed it out. So we just decided to partner together, and you know, it's been really great. We have felt like there was almost divine intervention going on, you know, in the formation of this, because so many people, so many influential people have said, "Oh, I want in," and so we've gotten a lot of encouragement from some very high-profile people.
That's fantastic. You know, it's interesting because last year, which was my son's senior year of high school, his last year to play high school tennis, UTR, Universal Tennis Ratings, decided to make a big push to have high schools report their team results, and they could only take the singles results, unfortunately, but it was a step in the right direction. UTR was reaching out to high school coaches and athletic associations around the country, pleading with them to please report results so that they could incorporate high school matches into a player's UTR and increase the number of players who would actually appear in their system, players who might not necessarily play USTA events or ITF events, but because they were playing high school tennis, would have a rating. And I love that idea, and I did, my little part through Parenting Aces to promote that and encourage my readers and listeners to take it upon themselves to report scores and all of that. And so one of the things that I kept hearing, though, was how broken high school tennis seems to be. And this is not a new story, and you guys know this. There is such a disconnect from state to state, region to region about high school tennis and how it's run, high school athletics in general. But, tennis is unique because it's an individual sport. So I'm curious, what kind of feedback are y'all getting so far from parents, from coaches, about the need for some sort of education, mentoring, regulation of these people that we entrust to coach our high school players?
I think the first thing that I see and we've seen, because we started this in January, and it really kicked off in Orlando, Florida. And it was funny, Styrling and I were in the airport, and we ran into a high school tennis coach at the airport, and she was so excited to talk to us. She was like, oh, that's exactly what I need. And so I think that there's actually a pretty large number of high school coaches out there who are really hungry for information because they don't want to have to reinvent the wheel. So I think if we start there, and I think if we start by presuming that people want to be their best, and that a high school coach is there for altruistic reasons for the most part, then when we reach out to them with that in mind, then I think it's a lot more motivating for them to say accept help. So that's the first thing. I think the approach that we take is really important. We're here to serve. We're here to help. And we're not here to be overbearing to anyone. The other thing is that we want to help parents to understand, that yes, tennis is an individual sport, but when it's done really well, then it's a team sport, and so the beauty of that is learning really how to be a team player and to blend into the overall mission of the program. So I think also there's an education of parents and players about how high school tennis is different and special.
Styrling, you have anything to add about that?
The only thing that I would add is that Bill and I are coming from, years of experience. I know when I was first a young high school coach, there was so many things about coaching high school tennis that was so much different than being on the court, training a junior or working with an adult. You have to deal with administration, you're dealing with a lot of parents, you're dealing with a lot of players together, trying to bring them together. And so there are so many mistakes I made as a young high school coach, and if I could have had some resource like this to help guide me in the process and give me some guidance on how to build a program, how to create good training practices, and all the details that go into to really bringing a group of young tennis players together. Because like you said, Lisa, tennis has always been an individual sport, but there's a dynamic that goes on with high school tennis that you're not necessarily playing for yourself anymore when you're on a team. You're really playing for each other. And there's a very unique skill set that you need no matter where you're coming from, whether you're a teacher or maybe a parent volunteer or maybe a professional coach like Bill and I who are taking over a high school team. And this is why we've created USA Tennis Coach and why we believe it is a viable organization that can really enhance this process of really raising the bar.
And I would also like to add, because Styrling and I were talking this morning, is that when I first started coaching, I left my first coaching job because I had done a horrible job, and I left before I could be fired. And that could have been the end. I mean, that could have been completely the end of my high school coaching career, but I reflected on a lot of the mistakes I made, and I was kind of determined to kind of get back into it at some point. And 4 years later, I returned, and I had made up my mind, okay, I'm going to do this and this and this differently because I got off to such a poor start with teenagers at the age of 26. You know, so there are a lot of mistakes of youth that can be avoided, you know, if we can give people the content of 27 seasons of coaching.
Well, it's funny because I love that in your description of the organization that the word mentorship is included. And I've interviewed, you know, countless coaches, junior coaches, high school, college, professional on this show, and all of the good ones have in common the fact that they had a mentor or mentors that guided them in their early years of coaching and who they continue to rely on even as seasoned professionals now. And so I was really, you know, pleasantly surprised and happy to see that word mentorship included in your description. Can y'all elaborate on how you envision this whole mentorship thing working? Because again, like I mentioned in the beginning, you know, there's such a disconnect from state to state and region to region about how high school tennis is run and how high school sports are run. Each state has its own, you know, athletic association, its own governing body. And so how is the mentor thing going to work in this context? Styrling, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll go. I think first and foremost, you know, mentorship has, you know, it's a person-to-person relationship, and it starts. I think first of all, we're bringing up the awareness that there's a tremendous need for this. I know that in my own personal, like the division that I'm in and the coaches I'm around. You know, when I talk to them about mentorship and I offer my help, you know, I offer free, you know, mentorship, you know, things like that. So they jump on, like they completely, you know, want more information. How do I do this? How do I do this better? How do I do this? And so I think we've got to create a culture where as coaches, we're not just focused on ourselves, but we're actually looking to provide, you know, service to other coaches around us. And, you know, honestly, it's a discovery process for both the mentor and the one being mentored, if you will. So, Bill, do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I mean, that's great. And then, you know, I think it has to be underlined that we're a private company, and so, and we thought about, you know, do we want to become an association? Do we want to become a nonprofit? But we felt like being a for-profit company then kind of creates this expectation that we're going to deliver a lot of service. So if people aren't really gaining so much more value from the service than they are paying into it, then they're not going to want to be a part of it. So we really want to wow people with how much we help them. And then the other thing, too, is we do it out of respect. I mean, we're very much about listening and really discovering and helping people to become their own better expert. So that's a big part of it. So we started with creating a mission statement, and then we also have we have 6 major objectives for the organization because this is one thing that we've seen is missing. We see organizations running high school coaching workshops, and they have lots of fine coaches who come and they deliver information. And sometimes those people have never coached a high school match, and sometimes they have. And you get this hodgepodge of information. So what we've done is we've kind of collected all this information and put it into our own separate systems, and then so we've done a lot of the legwork on putting it all together into a cohesive thing, and so we are striving to be kind of the A to Z. Here's how you do it, and that's part of the reason why I republished the Art of Coaching High School Tennis. I went and rewrote completely the whole thing and added about 50% more content. And it's getting pretty close to being a complete A to Z. So,
That's
so
great.
Anyway, yeah.
I know both you guys know JP Weber, who is also based in the Atlanta area, and each year, for at least the last few years, JP has hosted at the park where he runs his tennis program. He's hosted a high school coaches workshop, and Wayne Bryan has come in and led the workshop, and it's an incredible opportunity for these coaches, right? Well,
yeah.
Every year JP has trouble filling the workshop. He has trouble getting the area coaches to commit and come, and it's so disappointing. I mean, as a parent of a kid that was playing high school tennis, I sent the reminders to my son's coach every year, and he never went. And
yeah.
I mean, it's I think one of the challenges, and you guys, I mean, what's so unique about the two of you is you were tennis coaches before you were high school tennis coaches, and there are a lot of high school tennis coaches out there.
I really started.
True for you?
No, yeah, I started as a high school coach and became a tennis professional from there, and so that has meant that I was early on pigeonholed as just a high school coach.
Yeah, and I went the other way.
And then Styrling, I mean, your thing was, oh wait, why do you want to do that, right?
Well, I was like, it was interesting. I was actually called by someone. I didn't even know who had heard my name, and they said, "Hey, I'm running a summer program at this high school. I need someone to take over for me." And then that was actually my door into high school tennis coaching, and that was kind of how I got into it. And I saw such a wonderful benefit in coaching players from that perspective, the team mentality. But I think, what you're talking about, Lisa, with mentoring, I think we actually addressed that in one of our objectives for USA Tennis Coach. Would you like for us to go through some of those? Would that be helpful?
Please. Oh, absolutely. I mean, listen, my goal here today is to help promote the fact that our junior players need to play high school tennis. I think it's an important piece of their development. I think it's an important piece, especially if they're planning to go on to college tennis. I think they need to take that step of playing at least 1 or 2 years of high school tennis. And parents need to understand that it's not going to be a setback in their child's development. And, this is a stigma that I think we need to get past, that high school tennis isn't going to make your kid a worse player if it's approached properly and if the coaches take the time to be properly educated. So
that's the key.
Yeah,
that's the key. I mean, I've had players that are state ranked that come and play on our teams, and they actually end up really outperforming themselves during the season because there's actually less pressure on them because they're able to play for their teammate and play for each other, and there's this camaraderie they build in that team atmosphere. And like you said, that they're going to be exposed to that if they go on to play college. They're going to have to learn to adapt, and sometimes players have I don't say every player, but I'm sure there's a learning curve there. If you've never played high school tennis and you go play college, there's a learning curve because now you've got to play along with your players, and they're looking to you and you're looking to them for support and things like that. So I think USA Tennis Coach is an organization that is going to provide this systematic approach to the type of performance coaching that is needed for, or at least is helpful for high school tennis coaches. We're also trying to provide pathways to success, and also we're a resource for collaborative services for continuing education. So that's kind of our mission statement, our overall mission statement.
Hey, you know what? Let's look at this for a second. I mean, I think it's great that you use the phrase systematic approach, because that's what we're doing that I think really makes us unique, because I don't see another organization out there that says, all right, what do coaches need from beginning to end to be a qualified high school tennis coach? So we're going to certify at 3 different levels. We're going to have, your basic high school coaching certification, and then we're going to have a championship level, and then the master level requires that coach then turns and does mentoring themselves. But why don't we actually go and start, why don't we go and, Styrling, why don't you share our mission statement and discuss that, and then we can kind of ping-pong through the objectives?
Okay. Does that sound good, Lisa?
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
Okay. All right, cool. So, like I kind of just said the mission statement, but I'll say it one more time in a concise statement. So USA Tennis Coach is an organization that provides a systematic approach to performance coaching, pathways to success, and then collaborative service. We're collaborative services for continuing education. And so our number one objective is we want to facilitate the improvement of high school tennis coaches until they can reach their full potential, which is something that you're always working toward, trying to pull out your potential. One of the goals for that is we're creating materials, books, video series, webinars, and other media scheduling materials that coaches can be actively plugged in to help in their improvement to reach their full potential. So that's our objective and goal number one.
Yeah,
Bill?
And then objective number 2, because we decided we would ping pong, because if any one of us spoke too long, probably people are going to fall asleep or whatever. Our second objective is to provide support to empower coaches to take full ownership of their program. So we're going to be offering solo and group mentorship and tutoring programs for professional growth. And really that's where the relationships are built. And we were joking around the other day. We were talking about Styrling, you need me, right? And so Styrling, what was your reaction when I said that?
Really, Bill? I don't need you, man.
I don't need you. Yeah, so nobody needs us. Nobody needs our empowerment, but they want it. If they want it, then we're here for them, and when they get it and they're empowered, then great things are going to happen. So, but we're not coming across as the expert. We want to help people develop their own expertise. So, anything else before we go to number 3?
No, you got it, brother. Number 3 is we're constantly going to improve our offerings through the interaction with the membership, which means we're going to provide like quarterly active requests for feedback through surveys and direct questioning. I think one thing that's really important is when you have people that want to be a part of an organization, they want to be a part of a group, a learning, continuing education. They sometimes, we want their voices to be heard. Like we want to hear from people. How is this going for you? What's the feedback here? What do you feel like we could offer that is more extensive? And then really kind of, I think the original creating materials are going to cover a tremendous amount of information. But this is kind of when it gets almost tailored to the coach. What is it that you feel like you're going through right now and that we haven't exactly touched on in the material? So we want feedback basically from the membership.
And let me just interject that, Sterling, I haven't discovered this about you yet, but I know Bill is incredibly active in social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Instagram. I mean, so when you say that, you really mean that you're going to be seeking out feedback? Because, I mean, I know Bill already does that with his books, and so to me that is incredibly valuable to know that you guys are going to be constantly reaching out to the people you're working with to make sure that you're addressing their needs. And again, to the parents listening, if your child is playing high school tennis, please encourage the coach to check out Bill and Sterling's organization and to get involved. And you guys have a website yet?
Yeah, it's coming along. Let me also offer kind of a word of caution there, because we want to engage with parents and kind of help them to maybe really take a very as respectful as possible attack with that coach, because we know what it's like. I mean, we've been second guessed and disrespected and and had people who have a million ideas, and there's a different one every week, and the parents wonder why we're not doing it their way. So I would say, do it with kid gloves. I mean, it might be fun to say, hey, here's a book that, maybe give them a book as a gift or something, and just say, hey, coach, I thought you might enjoy this. But if it says, you should read this, then that could be, I wouldn't. I'd probably throw it out. I'd throw my own book out, probably, if somebody...
So until your website is up and running, how can people reach out to you? How can they find you?
I think the easiest through our email, which is USATennisCoach@gmail.com, but you can also find us on Twitter. Mine is at HS10S coach, so that's, tennis, high school tennis coach. And then Sterling's is at USATennis_coach. And Jim Courier, if you're listening, we want you to give up USA Tennis so that you can use it for our organization.
Thank you,
Jim.
And they can also find us on Facebook. They can, Lisa, that I'm huge on social media, participating and engaging, and so they can also reach us personally on Facebook, and then we can direct them into the right place. But it really is about developing relationships. I had a phone call last night from a parent that called me from California, and then I spent some time with them on the phone last night, and then throughout the season I spend time talking to the parents of other teams. And it's very interesting to get perspective from, on the other side, because you hear what's coming from your own parents, but I want to hear what's coming from the other parents, and how they feel. So it has to be very authentic and organic, and just, you know, that's what I think that's the best approach, like Bill said. So,
are we ready for number 4?
What? No, not
go
yet.
ahead, Lisa.
I'm gonna jump on something Styrling said.
Yes,
hold,
go for
hold
it.
that thought, Bill.
Oh, it's not my show. It's not my show. Hold on, I have to do my affirmations.
Simmer down, Bill.
I want to go fast.
Styrling, you mentioned building relationships, and before we went on the air, the three of us were discussing that concept, and I mentioned to you guys that a friend of mine who is very entrenched in the tennis world mentioned to me recently how shocked she always is when she meets tennis people who don't know each other. And, you know, it seems like such a small community, but at the same time, there are a lot of people, you know, I'm using air quotes, doing their own thing out there and not building those relationships and not building momentum to improve what we already have. So I love that the two of you are so committed to that whole idea of building a community, building relationships, and addressing what needs to be addressed, but doing it in such a way that you're not alienating people, but rather bringing people together. And I just wanted to point that out, Bill. Sorry to stop your flow there, but I wanted to make sure we touch on that before we move on to point 4.
Not my show. It's not my show.
No, it's all good. Look, I love that. To me, that's you know, it's interesting. You know, coaching tennis is very interesting. I mean, it's a very entrepreneur career path. You know, we're kind of, sometimes we feel like we're out there alone, and we do get entrenched in our schedules and in what we're doing. I think it takes one thing to create relationship is hustle. You've got to carve out some time in your schedule as a coach, whether you're a high school coach, whether you're, you know, a professional tennis coach, and then you're looking into maybe coaching high school tennis for a period of time. You've got to really hustle and find moments where you are building those relationships, because I can tell you, I've tried to create the most intricate, perfect training environment for my players, right? And I can run them through that program, and then I can have all those emails set to go out to all those parents. But if I don't spend time just maybe touching base one-on-one with each of my players and with each parent at least sometime throughout the process, there's no way I can build trust. And you have to build trust in order for collaboration to take place. Because if there is no trust, all you have is cooperation.
I love that distinction. You're right. You're absolutely right. And there's always that fear of, you know, this coach is going to steal my player, or, you know, they're going to jump ship if I don't do this or that or the other thing. And I suspect at the high school level, you know, you've got that too. You don't, you know, the coach of a competing team, you know, may be concerned that you learn tactics that they've used against you. But you know what? That's the nature of the beast. And I love that concept of collaboration requiring trust. And and I think that's the mark of being a professional, right? Is having enough confidence in what you do to trust that sharing that information with somebody else doesn't make you less than.
That's right, because you know what's interesting is the same information's out there for all of us. And the difference is how you as an individual person, with your individual characteristics as a person, actually execute on the information. You know, there is so much information about coaching that is available. It's called the internet, the superhighway, the information superhighway. We're kidding about that. They used to call it that. But there's so much information, and you have to, as a coach, realize it's how you execute that information that is going to make it come alive. And you cannot be afraid someone else acquiring the same information. They're going to get it. And that we want to share that information, and we want to see coaches at any level be able to take that information and understand how to execute it in their environment, high school being what we're talking about today. So
I know you're going to love this. So I get reviews for my books on Amazon. So if anybody reads one of my books, please review them. I need more reviews. But I got this one review from a young coach who said, "It's nothing you couldn't learn on your own." And so I responded, and I said, "Yes, in 25 years."
That's right.
That's right. And so I thought wow, that's a really interesting thing. This person has decided to do it the hard way. Okay. I mean, I would love we would love to save people time and the pain that we've gone through. We've had some painful experiences. I've had situations on my team that have reduced me to tears.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm so fully engaged in what I'm doing, and maybe I made a mistake or somebody made a horrific mistake that changed the outcome for the entire team.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You just hate to see something that you're building destroyed or hurt or damaged anyway. So I get really, really excited about high school tennis, probably more than any other kind of tennis that I see. I would much rather watch my high school kids play than any Grand Slam tournament probably now.
That's a big statement, Bill.
Yeah, it's fun. It's really fun to be
I agree.
And really and have a stake. You got a dog in the race. So
right.
Yeah, it's
all
awesome.
All right, move us to point 4 because I want to make sure we get through all this.
Number 4 is that so our objective number 4 is to provide relevant and valid testing to assist coaches to discover their best pathway to success. So we already alluded to the different professional certification levels, high school coach, championship, and national coach. So what we find is that the information that's given is sometimes not relevant because a lot of the information that's given to high school tennis coaches is delivered at a high performance level. But, for example, I have a chapter in my book about how to get somebody to picking up a racket for the first time and getting them so that 2 weeks later they're playing a match. because probably 80% of the high school tennis coaches in the country deal with that. They deal with kids who on the first practice picked up a racket. And you got to get that kid playing. So the relevance of the whole range. I mean, sure, we have stuff that touches on high performance players, and then our testing is going to be, we think, valid. It's going to be what the things that you actually need to know to coach a high school team. Not just what does it take. I mean, if you have a team full of ranked juniors.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes
that's it.
I sometimes am disappointed and maybe even angry when I hear a college coach at a high school coaches workshop saying things that are completely applicable to college tennis and work great, but would be really misfounded advice at the high school level.
Like what? Give an example.
Kind of about sort of playing favorites probably the worst way to put it would be playing favorites. Because, a college team has the luxury of so much one-on-one team time with each player that those relationships can be built very deeply. or modifying the schedule for someone to fit their whatever their conflicts are academically or personally or what have you. But there's really just not that much flexibility, nor should there be at the high school level. I mean,
that's a great point, Bill.
I am fairly regimented. I am fairly militaristic in the way I do things, because I think high school kids really need a lot of discipline, and I try to teach them to be self-disciplined. So I really firmly believe that if a kid comes and plays with me on my team for 4 years, they leave as a man. If they buy in, if they're fully bought into everything. Now, having said that, in 27 years, I have made exceptions with 3 highly gifted players. And 2 times it worked out great, and 1 time it was the worst blowout you can imagine, and it was really awful. It was really an awful experience because that player took advantage of me and the team.
And for those who are curious about, I was going to say, for those curious about that story, you talked about that in our book together, and you also have talked about it in prior interviews on this show. So, I've heard the story, and it came back to bite you. Yep. It totally came back to bite you. Sterling, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's fine. No, that's great. A little piggyback, just from my personal perspective. It is very important, like Bill said, at the high school level for a team to create a consistent pathway of participation for the player that's going to play for your team. It's crucial in the development of unity between the players. We're dealing with high school kids, anywhere from 13, 14 to 18 years old, and they're very impressionable, and their emotions are crazy. I know, I have 2 teenagers myself. So you have to build a consistent expectation that they come together consistently, coming to practice, committing to the team, because that's how you build unity, and that's how you build championships and championship players, and players that go on after they leave your high school program and they go to D1, D2, D3 college programs, because they built that. They were able to develop discipline by commitment to not only just the team or the coach or the school, but to their teammates. And I too, like Bill, have had similar situations, but all mine went bad. And so I just decided I would make the rule, and it's worked out marvelously since. So I can say that.
That's great. And this is important for parents to hear from the coach's side, that, you know what, your kid, even though he may be the top-ranked junior in the state or she may be the top-ranked junior in the section, don't expect special treatment when it comes to the high school team. And, I think if the coach does a good job of clarifying expectations up front, then the player goes in knowing what's expected and can choose to play or choose not to play based on those expectations. But if the child chooses to play, then they are committing to following those expectations and not expecting any kind of special treatment. And parents, if you're confused about what the expectations are at your child's school, you need to shoot an email off to the coach or, schedule a meeting and clarify all that up front, because it's not fair to go in and ask for special treatment.
Well, Lisa, I've tried to actually put
chime
myself
in on that one. I'm sorry. Let me get in there.
Go ahead.
One thing that's really is required at many schools is that coaches must have a parents meeting at the early part of the season, so that once you have your squad and you know who's on, then everybody knows exactly what the expectations are. And even so, that I've had a situation where I outlined all the expectations I had, and then we had a kid who violated most all of them. And then that parent was a problem for me. And then that really was an awful situation, and I had laid out here's what it all is, and they willingly violated all of that and were working against me and the team. So, that's the worst situation that I've had in 27 years, but that is possible. So, you can but it is great if the parent does, go to clarify what are the expectations. But I would also say that if the expectations aren't clear, then there's a coach who could really benefit from USATennisCoach.
Yep.
For sure.
I can completely understand where the parent is coming from. I've tried to put myself in their shoes because, as a parent and you have a top-ranked player, you want the best for that player. Like, you want them to be hitting against the best players. You want them to excel in their game because you're just looking after your kid. I totally get it. What sometimes if we're seeing it there, we see a blind spot that the coach sees. As a coach, I'm seeing that, well, wait a minute, am I providing an environment that actually helps that player continue to excel? I had a really top-ranked player, and what I did was I created a training environment where she had to compete against not just one player across the net, but two. And it made it so much more difficult for her to win points. And it's like, these are the types of things that are in the materials that we provide, information like this that you can say, hey, well, this is the blind spot. This is how you go to that parent if they come at you on a sidebar conversation after you've already explained everything. And then once you are able to have the ammunition and you information as a coach, it's amazing. I just explained it like that to these parents, and it's interesting. By the mid-season, they were like, Sterling, this is great. She hasn't played like this. I haven't seen her play like this all year. So things like that. So it can be a positive, but it's really the responsibility of the coach to create an environment that is graceful and that's open for discussion without budging on what you feel like is the right, the appropriate thing to do with keeping to what kind of unity you're trying to create in your team. So,
right. So, are there more than 4 objectives? I don't want to cut you off, Bill.
More.
Sorry.
More.
Yeah. Real quick. 5 real quick. We're going to provide timely communication to facilitate the interaction with members for the sole purpose of developing their voice in the organization. So the goal of that is that we're going to respond to every call and email within 24 hours of receiving it. And so there's going to be a prompt response when people reach out to us. There you go.
That's huge.
Huge.
That is huge.
It's very huge. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of breezed through it, but that's big.
Well, that's born out of our own frustrations of organizations that we've been a part of. That we ask a question and then we get crickets, or we get an incomplete answer, or we don't get something that says, "Hey, I'm on vacation. I'll talk to you on Tuesday."
Yeah, and with the way technology is today, it's in the palm of your hand. There's no excuse. You can't respond within 24 hours. And so we're holding ourselves accountable for that.
That's great. That's great. I want to ask y'all, because I think this comes up quite often. I mean, you guys are professional tennis coaches and have a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience. A lot of high school teams are coached by people who don't have that background and that knowledge. And I think therein lies the frustration from the parent side, especially parents of high-level juniors. They don't see the value in placing their child under the auspices of a coach that really has no understanding of the game of tennis and, may not even understand how to run a practice. So what is your organization going to do for coaches in that situation?
Well, first, I would like to say that everybody has some understanding of tennis because they know that there are rackets and there are balls and the court's shaped like this. So the first thing is, okay, you have somebody, hopefully if it's a teacher at the school, then they have a teaching credential. And, that empowers you a lot. I mean, I have I've gone through teaching credential education and to a master's level in education, and that has helped me far more in my teaching of tennis than the sum total of my so-called tennis experience. So I think first if you say, all right, we have somebody who's a professional educator, but they have limited knowledge of tennis. So how can I as a parent be of help to them, right? And then we have materials. I mean, we're putting together and these 5-minute videos, so a coach can listen to or watch a 5-minute video on, here's how to organize your practice. Here's how to do periodized training. Here's a challenge, because we don't call them drills anymore. We call them challenges. Here's a challenge on court that will help your players develop good cross-court play. The funny thing to me is that even with a team that was largely made up of ranked juniors, I had to teach them to play the ball cross-court. So if all your coach knows is play the ball cross court until you get an opportunity to do something else, that can take you to a sectional championship. So
wow.
So anyway, I think that's the first thing, is affirm that coach as the professional that they are, and then if you can help bridge that and say, hey, would you like access to some materials? I can help you find some really good materials. I think that's a great way as a parent to reach out to them.
Fantastic.
There's much more that can be developed in playing on a high school tennis team than simply being a better, winning more matches. That's for sure. I think that's what Bill's getting at. You're going to learn much more as a young teenager on a tennis court than just winning a match or getting a ranking.
Right.
Actually, I was thinking about just winning. Because that's all I want to do. I want to win. I want to teach kids to be champions. And if they lost 0-0 this time, then the next time I want them to get 4 games. Off that same opponent.
Then you'll love my new book, Bill, How to Win Every Time You Play.
Awesome. No, that's awesome.
I want that book.
Yeah.
It's coming out a month. March.
Does it come with a guarantee?
Well, here's the funny thing. I mean, I've had teams come off the court on the wrong side of the score. And I have looked my kids in the eye and with a pure heart, I've said, gentlemen or ladies, you won today.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't come out on top of the scoreboard, but you gave 100% effort, right? You were fully engaged in the competition and having fun with it. You showed great poise and competitiveness, and you learned something. You win.
Yep.
Well, and that's huge. And I think, there are plenty of coaches who adopt that same mindset, but then there are plenty who don't. And, you guys both know, y'all have been part of these conversations on Facebook, dealing with what is the goal when you step on the tennis court. Is it only about winning the match and coming out on top on the scoreboard, as you're saying, Bill? Or is there something more to it? And I think a good coach finds the something more. And I'm encouraged that the two of you brought that up, and I'm hoping that that's part of the message that's going to be imparted to your members, and so that we see more coaches out there with our high school kids who really are more about the numbers on the scoreboard and less about the numbers on the scoreboard and more about the attitude and the life skills that these kids are developing out there. So thank you both so much. And we're down to our last few seconds. I just want to encourage the listeners to please reach out to Bill Patton and Styrling Strother. You can reach them on Facebook, on Twitter. It's USATennisCoach, and you'll find their website hopefully coming soon. I will definitely have a link to it on ParentingAces.com. So, gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
To my listeners, I hope you've enjoyed today's show. I learned a lot. I always learn a lot from these guys. And if your child is in the midst of tryouts, good luck, and good luck to the team during the high school season. If you're on the fence about whether or not your child should play high school tennis, jump the fence and have them try out. It's a fantastic experience. Have a great week, everybody. See you next week on Parenting Aces.
Geico presents sharing versus oversharing. Way early this morning, Brad Higdon shared a major spoiler alert from everyone's favorite hit show, sad emojis to express his feelings about the plot twist, and a playlist he made to drown out his sorrows? Dude, oversharing alert. Brad, Geico has something worth sharing with those who haven't befriended you. Like how you could save hundreds on your car insurance at Geico.com. So stop moping about the post-apocalyptic world and start saving in the real world. Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.